Okay. Well, everybody, welcome to our monthly meeting of Pram Central, and it is an honor to have you here with us today, at which will hopefully be one of our last fully virtual meetings. And we've got some exciting developments coming up that we'll talk about in a few minutes here. But as we get started today, I wanted to recognize some new members that we have, and I'm going to ask Corey to give us a report on our new members. Corey is our VP of membership.
Thank you. So we've had a really active month. We have 5 new professional members and 2 new student members.
Did Corey freeze up? Corey, can you hear us? I don't know if you need to. This one of, yeah, here we go. You're back.
Am I back?
You're back.
Did you get any of that?
You probably need to start over.
Okay, sorry. We have 5 new professional members and 2 new student members since our last chapter meeting in January. We're really excited about that. Our 5 new professional members, we have Mark Sullivan with Entergy. We have Dr. Emmanuel Wachuku, or Dr. Manny, as his students call him, from Jackson State University, who is here today. We have Carolyn Cole with Jackson Public Schools. And we have Benita Donald, also with Jackson Public Schools, and Robert Chapman with Clinton Public Schools. And then our 2 new student members are Desiree Tackett from Belhaven and Ezel Gatan, I think is how you say, from Belhaven. So we're real excited and looking forward to having them join us soon.
Thank you very much, Corey. And it's always great to have new members. And when we get back to face-to-face meetings, we'll be able to meet these new members in person and welcome them into our club. So thank you. We are going to go ahead and introduce our speaker now, and I'm going to get Jan Schaefer, our Vice President of Programs, to introduce our new speaker, our speaker for this meeting, somebody with whom several of us know. So I'm delighted to have her with us today. So go ahead, Jan.
All right. Good morning, everyone. Our guest speaker today is Dawn Dougal. She is an award-winning storyteller and author. She spent 23 years as a journalist, working not once, but 3 times in the Jackson news market. Dawn was a Mississippian by choice for nearly a decade, and it was here that she wrote her first book. She's written 11 more books since then. 5 of those have gone to the top of the Amazon charts. But Dawn's going to be the first one to tell you that things weren't always so rosy, especially when the pandemic blew up her consulting and speaking business in 2020. So she's here today to talk to you about how you can set yourself up for success, not only today, but in the future with your career. Dawn.
Thank you. Every time I hear 23 years, I'm like, no, that's not right. I was 5 when I started. It's no way. Yeah, it's a long time, and there were a lot of really hard lessons learned, and I'm going to talk about a couple of those today. So let's make sure everybody can see. Y'all can see my screen. See when it says future proofing your career. Okay. So what I'd love to hear, give me a hot second. Here we go. What I'd love to hear from you all is, have you ever felt stuck in your career where you've hit a plateau, you've hit you've leveled out, you feel like you're maybe spinning all the plates, but nothing ever seems to change? What we're going to talk about today is going to help you get unstuck if you're in that feeling right now, and also help you look at your future and where you go from here. So I'm going to tell you a little story for those of you who don't know. And by the way, in case you can see the video behind me, that's Gabriel, my cat, and he is my writing assistant. He is real dang judgy when I write the steamy scenes in my books, but we're not going to talk about that right now. We'll talk about that some other time. So, but that's who that is, and he's decided he's checked out. He's done for the day. So, future-proofing your career. Let me tell you a little story, and I'll tell you my background and how we got where we are. I guess I have to do it this way. Here we go. Once upon a time, I started out as a journalist, and I worked in a really small, on a little tiny island in the Pacific Ocean in the Marshall Islands. It's the island of Kwajalein right there. And it surrounds the largest atoll in the world. And the island I lived on was 3 miles long by a half-mile wide, and you could only get around by bike. Unless you were covering a story, then you could rent a diesel bread truck. That's how I learned how to drive a diesel truck. Fun facts. And as you can see, I was a one-woman band. I was a reporter, producer, anchor, and we were covering some really hard-hitting. We had team coverage of this. This was our Christmas parade. We were waiting for Santa. Good times. That was like the hot stuff going on there. And it was a lot of fun. And when I came back to the United States, I went to work in Tampa, where, as you can see, this was right after there was a word for fire. We were barely having big old computer monitors. And I was an associate producer. It meant that I wrote the news. 6 months after that, I had my own newscast. And within 6 months of that, I went and took that newscast to #1. And pretty soon people said, well, you're really good at that. If you're really good at doing it, you'd be really good at managing it. So you know what, we're going to throw a whole bunch of promotions at you. And I moved all over the country. I've lived in all these different places, and every newsroom that I was part of, we went to #1. I won 67 awards. I have a Edward R. Murrow Award, but not an Emmy. I'm not bitter. It's fine. I was nominated. That's good enough. You can see the eye rolls from here. Never won my Emmy, but I'm cool. We won a lot of great awards. We've made a lot of helped a lot of people across the country. But then one day, I was called into the boss's office, and I was told, we're not renewing your contract. Now, those of you who have worked in television know that those are fancy words for you're fired. And after 2.5 years of being in charge of this newsroom and a $2.5 million budget, I was escorted out of the building. They would not let me clean out my office. I had to rely on a friend to do it for me while security watched them. It was a pretty crappy time. So this was in 2012. This was 10 years ago. And I had 3 months of soul searching, also known as couldn't find a job, to figure out what happened. So what happened? Like, what went wrong? Well, the first thing that happened is I put my career in someone else's hands. That last job, when you're a news director, you are typically hired by the general manager. Not in this case. The company hired me, put me in place, and that is a recipe for disaster. I didn't know enough to know better. That was part of the issue there. And that meant that I let somebody else in the driver's seat. I spent too much time worrying about my weaknesses. I spent so much time worrying about that. I didn't do the things that got me to that place in the first place, the strengths that made me successful in these previous jobs that had led all these people to ratings wins and awards and helping their communities. And I didn't protect my future. And that was evident, clear as a bell, when I was shoved out the door, because nobody would talk to me at that point. It was a real lonely time. My parents still liked me though, so that was good. They have to, it's in the contract. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about identifying your strengths. And I don't mean the strengths that come up on a personality test. I'm talking about the things that make you successful and how to track those successes and how it plays into marketing as it comes and how it plays out in 2022, the #1 skill you're going to need to be successful, and then how to take control of your career. So I don't ever wish what I've gone through on anybody. It was a hard lesson to learn, and I would never, ever wish that, even on my worst enemy. I might put it in a book though, but we'll see about that later. All right, so let's talk about strengths and weaknesses. So every one of y'all, and I see a lot of familiar faces. Hey, Therese, how you doing? Hey, Matt. Hey, y'all, I see you. I know that the folks in this group are overachievers. You got a lot on your plate. You guys are spinning plates. You're making things happen. You're doing probably more than one job. And you have these amazing superpowers, these amazing strengths. So what is it that the #1 thing that you're known for is, it could be your strength. It's something that you love doing. get you fired up. It's the thing that gets you out of bed in the morning. You're excited about doing it. And these are the things that lead to your successes. So when I'm talking about tracking your successes, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got, and it was after I got fired, so it was too late for that ship. That ship sailed, but I was like, man, that would have been helpful 3 years ago. I got a great piece of advice, and it was to send 2 weekly emails to your boss. The first one you send on Monday morning, and this is the here's what I'm working on email. This is where you list the things that you have on your to-do list for the week ahead. Any marketing, like this meeting would be considered a marketing or a networking meeting. Anything that's going to build the company's brand, you'd put that in the email and list out those things that are coming up. Here's why it's important. Number one, it lets your boss know what you have on your plate. So if you're working on these 3 big projects they've asked you to do, they're not going to put anything else on your plate without having to take something else off. Number 2, and this happens a lot to us overachievers that are doing all the jobs, if you were working on a project that they don't need anymore, they can say to you now on Monday, hey, oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you this, I don't need that project anymore, as opposed to getting on Friday, you've worked all week, you've put all these things off to bust your butt on this project that they don't even need anymore. What a waste of time, and how aggravating is that? I've been there. Who else has been there? It's so frustrating because you could have been doing these 100 other things. So that helps, that really clears up a lot of confusion. Let me tell you something, that email has saved me so many times since I learned how to do it. And then you send an email on Friday, and here's the things that I've accomplished this week, and here's the future action items. In this email, especially for my marketing and PR peeps, this is where I recommend that you put all the KPIs. So if you've had a 10% growth in social media, you've had an engagement increase, you've had, all the Google Analytics, this way you can track it week to week, because you're also going to keep a running list of all the things you do. Everything that you put in that email, I want you to copy and paste it, put it in a document just for you where you can have it. If God forbid the company shut down tomorrow and you were walked out the door, where would you find that list? Hopefully you've got it somewhere accessible. Again, I don't want to be all doom and gloom. This is about, we're getting to the good stuff. But you keep a running list of this, because in those things that you've done, all of those accomplishments, you are going to find your successes, your star stories. And star stories are those, you're going to have about 10 of these really meaty stories that tell the story of your career. And STAR stands for the situation that what was going on, the task you were assigned to do, the action you took to get there, and the result. So the situation may be, hey, everything's shut down for a pandemic. The task is, how do we communicate with our customers to let them know we're still open for business? The action would be, all right, we created this series of videos, and as a result, our engagement online, our orders online went up 150%. That is a STAR story, and that is something that you will use for your end of year reviews. We have all gotten there where we get to the end of the review, end of the year, we're asked to fill out a self-evaluation. And by the way, our bosses are in the same boat. In most cases, they can't remember what we did a month ago, much less 3 months back or 4 months back, when you've saved the company $20,000 in revenue or what have you. So you have all this list, you know what you've done because you've been keeping track. You put these things on your resume, LinkedIn, you use them in interviews, and they become the foundation of your career. Let me go back to that. So the foundation of your career, these are the things that become your transferable skills. Your successes highlight those things. And for those who have never heard that word transferable skills before, that is a skill that you learned in this job that can be tweaked or done differently for another job. You don't always have to go apples to apples. You won't, if you're in the PR seat here, you don't necessarily only have to find a PR job. You might find something very similar that uses all those skills for you. Now, this will also highlight your so-called weaknesses. And I don't want to spend too much time on this, but there are some things that you probably realize you need or want to do better. As you get better in your career, as you learn to do certain things, it becomes evident, you know what? I'm really bumping my head up on the wall on this. I really need to learn how to do this. Those are not necessarily your weaknesses, but those are opportunities for growth. Those are places where you can build on your marketable skills so that you can go anywhere when you want to and not rely on getting the same job that you've had for the last 10 years. All right, I'm talking about the pandemic pivot, and pivot is one of my dirty words. I hate the word pivot. And not because it's been one of the top 5 buzzwords for the last 2 years, but it's a really stupid word when you really think of it. Number one, I'm legally required as a former a former Hoosier, to love basketball. So I'm going to use a basketball reference, FYI. In basketball, one of the things that you learn pretty quickly is the pivot. This is where you're dribbling down the court. Somebody gets in front of you. You can't get around them. You plant one of your feet. You're trying to find a way to get the ball out of your hands so you're not stuck with it. And you can spin around as long as you keep that one foot planted. The problem with the pivot is you're not going to get anywhere, and you're probably not going to score from this point. It's very rare that you can shoot the ball after pivoting. Your point at this point is just to give it away. The better thing is to find another path, to be where the other guys aren't. Easier said than done, right? Y'all know Bravo, Broad Street, and Salamukis. I hope you've probably heard of it a time or two. When the pandemic hit, the company freaked out because all restaurants shut down. Everything's shut down. There's nowhere to go. Everybody's locked down. You can't do anything. To-go orders only accounted for 20% of Bravo, Broad Street, and Salamukis' bottom line. 20% sounds really good next to nothing, but it wouldn't be enough to keep the employees working. And that's been very important to Jeff and Dan, the owners of the company, since day one, making sure that they could keep these great employees working for them. So instead of sitting on their hands, like a lot of restaurants did, they said, well, what can we do? And if you know Jeff and Dan, they're pretty famous, especially Jeff Good. What can we do? What can we do? So they came up with this idea for neighborhood delivery. And that is where the cooks, all the employees would create food that was ready to heat. It's not exactly the same as Bravo, Broad Streets, and Salamukis, the experience, but they would bring it to your neighborhood and you could drive up and pick up and then drive away. And it helped keep that company afloat so that they could, and I think they've also expanded since then, I believe. Then I'll tell you about my friend Ginger. Ginger Thomas is an internationally renowned abstract artist who lives in Flowood. And at the start of 2020, she had a lot of places around the globe and around the country who had asked her to come and teach classes to learn how to paint like Ginger. And of course, 2020, everything got canceled. Everything got shut down. So instead of saying, woe is me, she said, what can we do? How can I take these classes and get them to people? Well, we shot online courses. And when we shot the online courses, we realized Ginger doesn't have a website that can host online courses. So guess what? We have to redo her website. But we found another path. And as a result, 2020 was her best year ever in revenue. And 2021 was the second. It was just by a hair. It didn't go past 2020. And then I'll tell you, my world got blown up. I was a consultant. I was a speaker in 2020. I had a keynote speech scheduled for every month of the year. Everything got shut. I was going to be a keynote speaker in a national conference in Vegas. I've never been to Vegas. I still haven't been to Vegas. And everything got canceled except one of the events, which was fine. It went virtual, but that's not enough. The pivot wasn't enough. I needed to find another path. So I got to thinking about it. I know how to write. I know how to do video. I've already written one book. I know I can do it one time. I could probably do it again. I've always wanted to write a novel. Maybe this is the time to do it. And I'm also really stubborn and can figure a lot of things out. I will figure it out. What I don't know, when I find it out, I'll learn it. I'll figure it out. And as a result, I wrote a book. I wrote a novel. And that novel, the second to the left there, A Hot Flash of Homicide, led to the second one, which is Counterfeit Midlife Crisis, which is the third one, and the fourth one, and 5, 6, 7, and 8. I end up writing 8 novels in 1 year. I don't recommend it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of work. And if you ask my mom, she'll go around telling you I write books about sex, but there's more than that in there. It's more steamy, but it's romance. So, and on top of all that, I did the last thing I ever thought I would ever do in the entire world. I swore up and down that I would never do this, but I did it anyway because somebody said, this is where you go to sell books. I got on TikTok. I'm like, no, I'm over 40. I don't want to lip sync. I don't want to dance. And I want to sell books and talk to book lovers and be, be my crazy self. And they were like, yeah, you need to be on TikTok. So I was like, fine. And 1,800 followers, that's about a month and a half. That's the best increase I have ever seen on social media. And I used to be the Facebook expert at one point. I know nobody's on Facebook anymore, but here we are. And being my crazy self led to this. Was my first video that went viral. It got seen by 220,000 people, liked by 5,400. And then I did this series, if women authors wrote about men the way men write about women, and that thing went crazy. 187,000 views, 26,000 likes, and 233 comments. It became a series, and I've sold books. So it's insane. It's crazy to me, but here we are. So what do these things all have in common by the fact, except for, we're all nuts and we're willing to jump into the deep end of the pool? Well, number one, we put the baseline skills to new use. Number two, we had a flexibility to try a different path and a willingness to take a chance. I mean, I was sitting around with nothing better to do. It's like, well, why not? I've got all this time on my hands and nobody's hiring a keynote speaker right now. And I really didn't want to go the ginger route. I didn't want to do online courses. So what do you have to do? Here we are. So you got to find another path. Now, I'm going to talk about the state of marketing real quick here. I don't know how to make this thing go away, but here we are. In the 2020 State of Marketing report by Salesforce, they found the top 5 priorities. You guys are seeing the full screen of this, right? Not the message doodad that's
Yeah, we can see the full screen.
okay, good. Let's see if I can't get rid of that. But anyway, let's go back. All right. Yeah, you're there we go. Technology. I said I was good at it, and so I was an expert. Okay, so the top priorities that the State of Marketing found for companies across the country, and I've already given away, let the cat out of the bag if you saw it, but the top 5 priorities: innovating, engaging with customers, creating a cohesive customer journey, improving marketing ROI, and improving collaboration. And all of these 5 things have one thing in common, along with the marketing channels that these organizations are using. You see social media, digital, video, digital content, website, events, email, mobile, direct mail, audio, TV, and OTT. The one thing they have in common is the ability to write, the ability to tell a story. And the number 2 thing, and I put, even though it's in little letters there, it's still as important as writing, and it's the editing. And these are things that you guys are doing every day, whether you realize it or not. Everything that you put out in your public relations and your marketing, it all comes back to writing. And trust me when I tell you, if I'd have known that, forget the books, put the books aside for a second. If I'd have known how much writing there was going to be in my career, I would have paid more attention in class back in the day, which was, Cole's looking at me like I'm crazy. Yeah, that was back before there was a word for fire. Trust me, we didn't have cell phones. No, sir. Thank goodness. There were no cameras around everywhere we went, thank God. But writing it's going to be telling a story, being able to communicate that is going to be still the platform might have changed, the way we write might have changed, but the writing hasn't. And so this is why I cannot stress this enough, is really stick on the writing. And when I tell you that I didn't take control of my career until a few years ago, I mean, I was floating along, I was doing the thing, but here's what I'm going to tell you. You have the power to take control of your career. And here's the other, for the younger folks who are joining us, it is not your boss's job to train you for your next step. Their job is to make sure you can competently do your job, but it is not their job, it is not their responsibility to make you more marketable. That is on you. I can tell you right now, the people who have come through, the people who I've worked with over the years, and those are many, many years in news. The ones who I said, you know, we could really use, here's something we could use in the newsroom. Would you be willing to learn it? The people who said, no, that's not my job, did not last. The ones who said, you know what, sure, I'll lead that. I'll lead that charge. I'll be that person for you. Those folks have gone on to bigger and better things. And it's not about what you're willing to learn, it's the willingness in the first place. Are you willing to invest your own time into making your life and your career better? That's what it comes down to. So take control of your career. 80%, the Pareto principle, have you ever heard of this? The 80-20 principle, that 80% of the results come from 20% of the output. I know as a writer, 80% of my income comes from writing, which only takes about 20% of my time. And when I said, don't write 8 books in a year, the writing is no big deal. I can write a book in 3 weeks. It's the marketing, the editing, the videos, the interviews, the emails, the rewriting. That's the stuff that takes a while. But ultimately, that's not going to be the stuff that moves the needle forward for me. It's the stories, the stuff. So finding those 20% items that can move your career forward in the 80% way. Google even lets some of their employees take a whole day off of work for innovation. I'm sorry, not take a whole day. They take a day for innovation time. Now, I know that we're never going to get that. So the question is, where are the little pockets of time that you could carve out for your future? So when it comes to the 80-20 rule for your life, ask yourself, what would be the most impact for you? What would be something that you could learn that would propel you forward, that would put gasoline on the fire for you? Where are the pain points? What are the things that you have come up against that you haven't been able to do something about because you didn't know how to do it? But now you know. You don't always know when you get started, but once you do, now what are you doing about it? What are the opportunities for leveling up your career? And then this is the important part, getting the buy-in from your boss to pay for it, or at least give you the time off to go learn it. Where are the needs in the company, and what's the new technology they need somebody to learn to do to help them and make life easier? Because if you can find out those things and figure out the benefits to the company, you can sell it to your boss. And once you get to yes, schedule it, because they'll forget about it the second you leave the office. Trust me on this one. And I've had plenty of times where the boss said, okay, you know what, we can't pay for that training. And I said, all right, that's fine. I just want the time off and I don't have to take vacation. Would you do that? Yeah, sure would. Okay, I'm going to go get a scholarship for it. I'm going to write an essay, get some money. Would you write a thing? Yeah, sure, we'll do that too. Every single time. Because I was, again, I'm stubborn and I'll just do it. Like, just go do it. I got the time off to do it. So there are going to be people on this chat. I can hear him right now. But Dawn, my boss is not going to go for that. There's no way. They don't have the money. We don't have the time. I can't get the time off. So then the question is, are you willing to do it on your own time? And then you say to me, but Dawn, I got a lot on my plate. Oh my God, so many plates. I got all the plates. And not to mention, I'm also running a household and I got the kids and I got to take care of my parents and I've got all these things going on. That's when I say to you, you have the time and you can get more money, but you cannot get more time. That is Jim Rohn. I say his name wrong all the time. You can get more money, but you can't get more time. So looking at what is on your list of things that you are doing every day, every week, every month, every year, where are the places that you could cut in order to find the things that are important to you? If you were going to lose weight, if you wanted to lose weight, Rebecca Turner, my favorite dietitian / radio hostess, she would tell you you've got to do a food diary. And I'm like, okay, if you want to find out where the time goes in your life, you would do a time diary. It's the same principle. You write down everything you do every day, every week, every month, every year, the personal and professional things, and the actual time it takes. So I mentioned Jeff Good earlier. I love Jeff Good to pieces. He knows this. I've told him this to his face. This is no surprise to anybody who knows him personally, but that man cannot get out the door in 5 minutes. He just can't. Jeff has to, that's the Jeff exit. The Jeff exit is he's got to work the room in order to get out. And that's a 30 minutes just to get to that door over there. And then when he gets in, before he does that, he always thinks I can do one more thing. Oh, I can, you know what? I'm going to do this one more thing. And then I'm going to do my Jeff exit, And then he thinks that he has a wormhole in his car and he can get across town in 5 minutes, which he can't. So he's always late. The man is always late. I wrote a book about him. He's always late. Trust me. And I watch him. I'm like, no, I know why you're late. I could see it right here. You're trying to do a Jeff exit. It's an Irish goodbye. What are you doing? Get out. Go. But he doesn't know, he doesn't really account for how long it actually takes something. So I want you, when you're writing your time diary, write down how long it actually takes you to do something. Getting across town in Jackson may only take you 15 minutes, but parking the car, walking to the thing, that takes another 15 minutes. So that's a 30-minute thing as opposed to 15. You get the point. And then you're going to write everything down. And I sent Jan, I created this a few years ago for a client. She wanted to finish and write. She wanted to write and finish a book, and she just didn't have time. And she had no idea. She was in tears. She's like, I don't know where all the time goes. I'm like, well, we're going to find out. I love getting to the bottom of a mystery. We're going to find this out. And I created this me time generator. It was called something else back in the day, but now I got a semi-catchy term for it. And this is where you write everything on the left side, all the things on your to-do list. So for example, personally, I love karaoke. I'm gonna put karaoke on my list. I write books. I'm gonna put writing. I'm gonna put marketing on that list. So let's say marketing is multifaceted. So let's just do email newsletters. Let's put that on there, okay? So then when you have everything on your list, you go through your list, and if you love doing it, it gets a check mark in the love box where the little heart is. So karaoke, definitely check mark in the heart. Writing, I love writing, and if it builds your brand, there's the little money column. If it builds your brand or makes you money, sometimes it'll build your brand, but you don't make any money. Ultimately, you make money on that. You guys understand that concept. So writing, I love to do, and it also makes me money. Check, check. Email newsletters. I don't love doing it, but it does build my brand and make me money. So I'm gonna put a check mark there. And then that last column is the guilt should items. This is where you're gonna find a lot of your time has gone. These are the items that you've been voluntold, you have been guilted into. These are things that are often tied to our personal lives, our church, our nonprofits. We've said yes to a lot of things where we've put things on the plate, but we haven't taken anything off. And women especially are the worst at this. We are the worst. We want to say yes to everybody, but we don't realize by saying yes to this, we got to say no to something else. Something's got to give. And it's usually your sanity if you don't, say no to something. So all of the guilt things, all of the things that are on the list that you don't love to do, they don't build your brand. They're just there. That's the guilt should, the thumbs down. Surprise, surprise, the gal who didn't have any time to write her book, her whole list, like 80% of it was guilt should. And by the time we were done doing this, I'll also warn you about this right now. Every client that has gone through this with me has burst into tears, men and women. And I'm really sorry about that. But you know what? Sometimes you have to have that real talk about it, because you need to know, where is the time going? So everything on your list that you love, you keep it. period, end of story. Doesn't matter if you make money at it or not. You love it, you keep it. It's your joy. It's worth the time. If you have something that loves and builds your brand or makes you money, absolutely keep it. The money brand things only are maybes. And here's why. Ultimately, those will feel more like have to, should, I have to do that. It doesn't, there's no sparkliness to it anymore. Yes, we all have to do things that we don't want to do, but those are the types of things that you could delegate. Ultimately, I will delegate. I will find somebody to delegate my marketing and email marketing to, because it's not something I absolutely love to do. And it's really not my number one strength. And then you get rid of the guilt should. And here's how you do that. You stop doing the things only you know about. I know there are things on your list that you are doing that only you know about. And you're doing them because you feel like they need to be done, but then it's like, well, who's going to do them if I don't do them? No, it's maybe nobody, maybe somebody, you don't know, just stop doing it. Then there's going to be things you can delegate to others, but have a deadline and don't ask for permission. So let's go back to the client who had the whole mess of guilt should. She was on all these boards, a lot of boards, and they took a lot of time. And she says, well, what do you think how should I do this? Like, what would you say to him? And I said, what would I say to him? Or what do I think you should say to him? Because you're a lot nicer than I am. I would just be like, peace out, I'm done, and drop the binder on my way out of town. And she says, all right, well, what would I say? And I said, you go in and you say, I'm resigning my position on the board as of this date. Who do I give the binder to? You're not asking for permission. You've told them when the last day is, and that's it. And stop talking. Like, don't fill up the silence. And she says, oh, I don't know if I can do that. I said, well, don't start with the hard stuff, start with the easy ones. And she says, well, what if they don't accept my resignation? I said, it's a volunteer position. They can't make it. I like, even your job. I'm like, you can't even be made to do your job. I said, so if they refuse I was like, what is this, George Costanza? He refuses to break up with you. I was like, no, here's what we're going to do. I said, if they reject it, I said, then we'll drive past the president's house at midnight. You'll go up, you'll drop the binder on the front porch, and then we'll drive away like we stole something. That's what we'll do. I'm like, I don't know. I'm like, they're not going to do that, but I'm like, we have a plan. All right, we got a plan and we're going to do it. And thankfully, nobody refused her resignation. She was able to do it. And guess what? Within 3 months, she finished her book. Within 6 months, she had her own local radio show. And in 2 years to the day we did this, she started her own statewide radio talk show, and that was Rebecca Turner. So she has since gone on to do television. She's got a podcast, and her ultimate goal was to be like the Rachel Ray of media. And after she wrote that first book, I said, so you're going to start your second book? She's like, I'm not writing a second book. Well, she's written a second book now too. So it can happen. And she's got 2 kids, she's got a family, she's got a lot going on, but she found the time to do it. Now, all of that is to say, that's fine for your personal life, but what about work? Well, when you find that there are things getting in the way of doing the bigger things for your boss or for your job, that's a conversation where when you've had that conversation about the priorities at the business and how you can move the business forward, that's an opportunity to say, you know what, I know I can do these things, but this thing over here, this takes up a X amount of time. Can you help me delegate this? And in some cases, it might actually be somebody else's job that they haven't been doing. So it's a good opportunity to get that back on their plate. That's all I'm gonna say about that. All right, now, once you get everything off your list and you've got a manageable thing and you found this time and you're gonna do all these great things, the final piece of advice I'll give you is this. Learn the slow yes and the quick no. Because everything you take off, everything that you add to your plate, you have to take something else off. Otherwise, you're going to get right back where you are and you're going to go drive yourself nuts. So be very cognizant of what you said yes to and make it important to you. Make it matter to your life, because I got to tell you, changing toilet paper in a green room, which is something that I used to do in a job, did not move my career forward. It was helpful, but there were other people who could do that. And there were, I was actually doing somebody else's job for them. So that's it. All right. I will offer, I normally would give out like free stuff, but since we're virtual, if you go to sign up for my newsletter, I'll give you a free story. And that's that. So what questions do you have? Because again, I know it's easy for me to say, like, I don't have to go deal with the man or the woman every day. It's like, I work from home. I'm in shorts. It's fine. It's good. So I know Jan there were some people that asked the question. They had some questions.
I'm browsing through chat.
I do like Jan's comment here. TikTok is the last thing I said I would ever do, but never say never. Exactly.
Yeah. And I'll just make a point about your TikTok. I mean, your story time with the husband membership, everyone needs to go check that out. Everyone go check out Dawn's story time TikTok. I think you called it the husband membership.
It's called the husband membership.
Yes.
It may or may not have happened in Jackson, Mississippi.
Y'all listen to, y'all should check out Rebecca Turner's program. She's on, is it Fridays?
Well, she
on
does, I think she still does the local version on the Jackson Super Talk, but she also has, at least last check, she had a 2 to 3 p.m. On the statewide network too.
Yeah,
It's
I think
always
she's every
positive and
day.
uplifting.
She, you know what, Rebecca and I developed that show together, that we wanted to tell good stories. That's part of the reason why I quit news in the first place, is I was tired of telling all the bad stories. And she said, what if there was a show and it was about good things? And I'm like, good things are the Rebecca Turner. She says, that sounds like a great title. And I said, let's go pitch it. Let's go see. And here you are. I mean,
I think John Krasinski stole that idea from you when the pandemic hit.
got $1 million ideas and people just go out. I'm like, I gotta do some of this for me. I gotta stop giving away these ideas. This good stuff. But yes, good news. And we thought there were some naysayers in the sales team, by the way, at Super Talk. They were like, yeah, nobody wants to hear good news. You're never gonna sell that. Guess what? Her show has consistently been sold out of advertising, and sponsorships were the first to go. Her and sports, that was it. So just saying.
Yeah.
So
We have
I
any
know
other
one of,
questions?
oh, go ahead. No, I know one of the things I face when working with, younger individuals in the industry, it's really easy for them to, and for all of us, to list our strengths, what we're good at. We all seem to understand what we're good at and what we love doing, but weaknesses is always the really tough side. At what point did you in your career get sort of a grasp on your weaknesses? Was it that pivotal moment for you, or?
yeah, so when I tell you I'm stubborn, those of you who really, some of you know me pretty well, I'm stubborn, but I'm like, I don't know if you know the depths of my stubbornness, like stubborn. I will dig in. And I knew that this boss was trying to get me fired. He wanted me to go somewhere else. I had so many opportunities to take jobs elsewhere, but I wouldn't do it. I was just so stubborn. I mean, I just really kicked myself. But anyway, about 2 months before I got fired, he was riding my tail about something. And I was just like, you know what, this is it. You know what? I'm going to do what I know how to do. And I know how to make good television. I know how to connect with an audience, and I know how to tell a story. And you know what? We're growing in the ratings, not fast enough. Let's try some stuff. Like what would we possibly have left to lose? And so we did some pretty radical things that last sweeps. And I was really pissed because I got fired the day after an election. Oh man, it was a late night the night before, and I came in and I was like, oh man, why couldn't you have done this yesterday? I wouldn't have had to be here all night. But it was the last day of sweeps. And when the ratings came back, not only were they number one in the one newscast that we had done all these kind of, cutting edge things, it translated to all the newscasts. Like all the newscasts went to number one. And it was that aha moment, like, well, shit, I should have done that. Like, I knew that these would be things that, based on the research, based on feedback, based on online, the numbers, I knew that those things would resonate with our audience. And I really kicked myself because I should have done them sooner, but I didn't trust myself. I'd listened to other people kind of, you know who they are, the people in your life who kind of get in your ear and they tell you you're not good enough, or you got to do this, or, if only you were better. And, never asking yourself, maybe this person is full of crap. Maybe I'm not actually this terrible. And maybe it's just a fit thing. Maybe I need to be somewhere else. And so that's when I think for me, that's when it really kind of clicked with me. And it was not long after that I got recruited to go to Milwaukee and be the number 2 person in their newsroom in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which, by the way, is really cold. I was like, oh my God, I forgot it's cold here in the Midwest. I'm out. Like, I don't want to do this. This is terrible. So, yeah.
And we did put your me time generator in the chat. If anyone's interested in it, it is in the chat.
You also have, could you provide a way for people to get in touch with you, Dawn, if they have individual questions?
Yeah. Do you see my contact info down there?
Oh, did you do that already?
On the full screen? Is it on there? Do you see it?
Yeah, Dawn Dougal, I'm right there in front of me.
Yeah.
I've already sent you a Facebook request.
Oh, good.
There you go.
Good. You can all stalk me on TikTok. It'll be great. I mean, I've got all these weird bots coming at me too. And I'm like, well, yes, I am single. Thanks for asking. Like, where are you from? Nigeria. That's fascinating. Oh my goodness.
Oh, you've got a lot of mails from my brothers. Okay.
I got emails. Yes.
A lot of princes. Okay.
I mean, if only I can
But
have
some of them were
millions
from Louisiana, though.
Yeah, Nigerian
Some
friends.
were from Louisiana. So,
Oh, okay. Somebody was posting in a group. They said, I got all these man bots, and I'm over here going, I don't, like, what am I doing wrong? Do I need to add that to my Yelp review? This is BS. Where are the man bot? And then they started rolling in. So I was like, all right, we're covered. It's fine. So.
Hey, Don, I'm on your website. Where do you sign up for the newsletter?
If you go to dawndougal.com/subscribe, I'll type it in. Oops. I think I spelled that right. And then there's my email address if you guys have individual questions. Like, I know some of this stuff was really heavy, but I also hope that it gave you some hope. Like, here's what not to do, and here's how to find, because I think that a lot of the hard lessons that we don't really like to talk about those in business. We want to talk about all the, fancy schmancy stuff and make ourselves feel better. But it's like, no, you know what? Sometimes there's some really terrible things. And I had an interesting chat. There have been times when I'm like, why do I keep writing books? Like, is anybody reading these things? Whatever. Am I really connecting? And then I had, like, right then, I had a reader reach out to me and say, I was going through this. She was going through perimenopause. And she says, she's in Netherlands, and she says, I didn't know what it was. And then I read your book, which isn't about perimenopause, by the way. It's just a plot point. And she's like, I read that and I was like, oh my God, that's what I'm having. And she took it to her doctor and she says, I'm having this. And he says, yeah, that's what you're doing. She says, I would have never known. And I thought, I don't know how you put that in a review, but hey, if it helps others, thanks for sharing. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, thank you, Dawn, so much. That was a wonderful idea. Let's
appreciate it.
Give Dawn a hand. And I think she did a wonderful job. And please keep us up to date on what's happening with your career, because it's a very interesting path you've tried.
Listen, I try to find the hardest way possible to do things. So anybody wants to learn about that, you let me know.
Okay. So I would like to ask Jan now to talk a little bit about our March meeting and what we're going to be doing.
All right. Well, since our Pram conference is happening in early April, we've decided to make our March event a social. So this is going to be our first in-person event, I guess, since December. And it will get us prepped for our April meeting, which will begin back in person. So the plans are to have this social the week of March 21st. We're most likely looking at the 23rd or 24th. So if you could just hold those dates. We're going to have a great time. We are still working out some details. We hope to take advantage of the St. Patrick's Day theme from the week before, but we're going to send out more details via our usual correspondence, including our Facebook page. So like us and follow us if you're not doing that already. And we will be back in touch soon with March details. And thank you, Dawn. Wonderful job.
And hopefully we will, as I mentioned earlier, we'll be able to resume our in-person meetings, and that's something that we can all look forward to. I know I'm ready for it. Most of y'all have indicated you're ready for it as well. So do we have any other business to bring before the club, or anything to any questions? Yes.
I don't know if anybody's mentioned this, but the deadline for PRISM entries is Monday, the 28th.
Yes,
So get your PRISM entries in.
Yes, and we always have a good representation from Pram Central, and so we want to go ahead and get those in. So if you have any questions about that, you can send one of us an email, or there's plenty of information out there on Pram State's site as well. So thank you. All right. Well, if there's no further business, then we will adjourn the meeting and be looking for information about that March social event. And it's going to be great. And this is an opportunity for us to, I hate to use that word, but pivot that Dawn talked about. So stay tuned. All right. Well, everybody have a great day, and we'll look forward to seeing you soon.
Thanks, Bill. Y'all have a good one.
You too.
Have a good one, all.
Thank you. You too.